The San Jose Sharks are reportedly interested in defenseman Braden Schneider from the New York Rangers. Is this a match made in heaven for San Jose?
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young. I've been covering the Sharks since 2018, also the co-host of Locked On NHL. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly part of the Locked On Network, the number one sports podcast network. We cover your team every day. And if you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just follow along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. And today we're going to be doing the Braden Schneider episode, as the San Jose Sharks have been reportedly linked to defenseman Braden Schneider of the New York Rangers. We're going to discuss Schneider. We're going to look at his past, look if he's an upgrade over Mario Ferraro, as it kind of feels like these are two players in the same vein, and then talk about what a potential trade/contract extension would look like for him. So let's get started by looking at Braden Schneider, getting to know him a little bit. So Braden Schneider is 24. He turns 25 in September, so middle of September. He's 6'3", 6'4", so he's a big boy. 200 and about 10 pounds right-handed shot, where he was a first-round pick of the New York Rangers in the 2020 draft, where he was drafted out of the WHL. During that time, he spent 4 seasons in the WHL playing with the Brandon Wheat Kings. And his last year was that bubble season where he actually was 5 seasons, or no, 4. He had 1 game with the Brandon Wheat Kings as a 2016-27. Sorry, 4 full seasons with the Wheat Kings. He had that kind of, if you remember way back in the COVID days of WHL, they did that weird bubble season of like 22 games just to kind of get some games in for some of these guys. But after he was drafted, he spent like a little bit of time there. He also played in the AHL. If you also recall, they allowed some of these kids to play in the AHL while they're still trying to kind of figure out the WHL, CHL situation. Also represented Team Canada at the World Juniors that year for them. Also played for the World Championships for Team Canada, the 21 season as well. He made his NHL debut in the 21-22 season, where that year he split some time between the NHL and the AHL. He played for the Hartford Wolfpack. I had 24 games for them that year, and he's basically been a full-time NHL player since the 22-23 season. So this is a player who has despite only being 24, he has over 300 NHL games under his belt already. This is a guy who's played a lot of NHL games so far. And during his time, he's scored 20 goals with 59 assists and 79 points. If you look at his draft profile that season from the 2020, so he was considered the best defensive defenseman by Elite Prospects, and also, or one of the best defensive defensemen, and also the best hitter as well. His grade on a scale of 0 to 9, 9 being like McDavid elite level, like they never give out 9s. He was given a 6 for skating, a 5 for shooting, 5 for passing, 4 for puck handling, 6 for hockey sense, and 7 for physical with an A grade. Kind of some of the snippets from that. From one defensive defenseman to our next, the 29th ranked prospect is Brandon Wheat Kings, Braden Schneider. This punishing defender brings an impressive, lengthy resume to the table. He's also, since he's born in September, he could have actually just missed being a part of the 2019 draft. First thing anyone noticed with Schneider is NHL ready frame that he boasts, standing tall over most WHL competition. Only 9 skaters in that draft had a higher physical grade than him. He is absolute behemoth of a dude at this level. He imposes his will with thunderous hits, overpowering one-handed pushes, cross-checks. He's composed, doesn't overdo the physicality or take needless penalties, enters every hit with his stick leading, and doesn't hit unless he can break up the play otherwise. So he's physical, or during his draft, he's physical without being physical just for the sake of being physical, right? Physicality with a purpose. So which we like. We don't want guys just kind of running around, throwing their bodies around for no reason. Jacob Trouba type players, right? If you're going to be physical for a reason. So some of the other, so when Schneider's at the top of his game, he brings that one-man cycle disrupting edge, single-handedly entering offensive zone possession for the opposition. It's not something that shows up in every viewing, but it's absolutely within his means. But for his offensive skills are kind of where he needed some help. He was asked to do a lot of the transition game for the Wheat Kings, and he was kind of really iffy with that. And spoiler, something that you'll see crop up here with him when we get kind of into his analytics a little bit more. So as for this season, Schneider, like I said, 6'3", 6'4", around 210 pounds. He has 1 year left on his deal at $2.2 million, and he is an RFA. So if the Sharks do trade for him, they will control his rights for the next 2 seasons. But the assumption is you want to give him a contract here at some point. He's played 51 games this year, 2 goals, 8 assists with 65 shots on goal, playing about 20 minutes a night. Corsi for. So when he is on the ice, the Rangers are averaging 46.13% of the shot attempts. Goals for 39.19%, which is both those are kind of the Corsi for is right around where the Rangers are as a team, but the goals for definitely below where the Rangers are as a team. So when he is on the ice, they tend to give up more goals. Looking at his evolving hockey card, Schneider this year, playing first pair minutes. He's having to play more minutes, especially with Adam Fox out. He's had to kind of take the load there and bear more of responsibility. 32nd over percentile player, 21st percentile offense, 48th percentile defensively. So he's not done a good job of kind of creating expected goals for the Rangers this year. But he's pretty solid at kind of keeping the goals above replacement below. So I think a lot of it has come down to some poor luck when he is on the ice. His PDO is one of the worst. PDO is kind of like your shooting percentage with like the save percentage type of metric, and he is well below everybody else on the ice. But he is a good penalty killer, and especially when you look at his 3-year sample size here, 48th percentile playing second pairing minutes, where he's 49th percentile offensively, 37th percentile defensively. Again, the expected goals above replacement is pretty poor, but you see a much more kind of friendly offensive performances from him, like no power play minutes, which you'd expect, especially with guys like Keandre Miller, who was on the team, and of course Adam Fox as well. But has been playing a lot, fair amount of shorthand, and has been a very good in that. So if the Sharks do acquire him, he would help in that area. Looking at his hockey stat card as a WAR, so wins above replacement over the past 3 years, 27th percentile. Again, the even strength offense has been a struggle for him. Even strength defense has increased over this year, but the offense has really taken a dive. And last year he was about a 50% WAR player. This year it's really dropped down. So is this Braden Schneider, or is this the Rangers are a freaking mess? And I think that's what we're going to kind of figure out at some point. But he's been very good at the PK. He's played solid competition. He's had good teammates, of course. But, Schneider, I think there has been, it's been an interesting year for him. If you look at his all 3 zones, which Corey Schneider does a great job of tracking kind of what he does well. So when Schneider is on the ice, the Rangers he does a good job of when it comes to creating offense, kind of like creating some of his, chances and assists. And he does some of that stuff really positively. And I think a lot of it does kind of come down to maybe a little bit of a luck factor here. He's very good at creating one-timers for players, especially in the offensive zone, and kind of creating those shots, tip type of shots, especially if you have bigger players down below. He can create those type of plays for you. He does struggle, though, when it comes to not only kind of getting the puck out of the zone. He does it a lot. He has to face a ton of defensive zone chance of touches, trying to get the puck, but then also getting clean exits is an area where he does struggle. So I think you would probably want to have a more puck moving partner with him going forward. But I do think that that could be, again, where he's having to kind of do a little bit more on the Rangers this year. So that's kind of the Braden Schneider kind of analytics and deep dive here. So we're going to talk about kind of what his fit would be and why I think he would be potentially the Mario Ferraro replacement, as we'll kind of look at David Pagnotta's report here and stuff. So we'll get to that, and then kind of how he compares to one Mario Ferraro. So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get on the action. Because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts that you can apply to the bets you like most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boost you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback play, or coaching. And every bet feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. So make your picks, then apply your profit boost to get even bigger payouts while the playoffs continue to roll on. Visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. All right, of course want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't already, you got to check out the All Access Every Dayer Club. You get access to ad-free episodes of Locked On Sharks, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every major podcast app. You get an invite to a Every Dayer Club Discord server, which is super chill. We talk about the Sharks all the time, which is fun. Plus, access to special episodes of Locked On Sharks and just other stuff we really can't do here on the podcast. So go to lockedonsharks.supercast or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. So Schneider, I think it's fair to say after the, has had a bit of a tough season, and kind of where this is all coming from is David Pagnotta of the Fourth Period wrote an article the other day on the 21st about the Sharks and what they're still trying to do here, right? And basically he says the Sharks are taking calls on guys like Ferraro, Liljegren, Klingberg, Vincent Desharnais, and Nick Leddy, since those guys are all UFAs and basically are open to trading some of these guys while also looking to add young NHL-proven talent to the back end. He did mention Dmitry Orlov, of course, who still has 1 year left, Sam Dickinson, and Shakir Mukhamadoulin, which I thought was a little interesting, are the other three who are not open, not in play. He has said that contracts with these players haven't really happened, contract talks, but those could happen during the Olympic break. And I'm sure Greer has some sort of sense of who would be willing to come back and kind of what number they'd be willing to come back at. So I'm sure he's not in the dark there. He's, he kind of has the number. So of course he goes on to say, like, Ferraro has been linked with the Avs at some point. In the past, it could be a player that they circle back on. We know the Sharks have tried to add Dougie Hamilton, but one player the Sharks had interest in over this is New York Rangers blue liner Braden Schneider, who can become a restricted free agent this summer and has arbitration rights. 24-year-old has an off year thus far, but an argument can apply to a good chunk of the Rangers roster. So with 2 weeks before the Olympic freeze, trade discussions have picked up. Sharks may wait until the deadline itself before making another move, but it is something I think that the Sharks are interested in, which is why we're having the discussion right now. So the presumption is, right, that we've talked about this before, is Mike Greer is trying to thread the needle of trade some of your UFA guys, and especially guys you don't want to pay long-term, and still look at adding pieces to build around this young player or this young team, right? And build around Celebrini and Dickinson and such. And Schneider, it kind of fits that profile of a young guy. Still, he's only 24. He'll be 25. That you can continue to add here. And a guy who has played, right? He's played a ton of NHL games. He's already played almost 50 playoff games in his career, which is more than most of the Sharks, a lot of Sharks players, right? I mean, you think Mario Ferraro, who's played 0 playoff games in his career. Like, you can see why the Sharks would be interested. Now, I think the Ferraro comparison is very apt, right? That defensive defenseman who can kind of come in and help, solidify. And right, we know Schneider's right-handed, which is a plus. He's bigger, right? And they both kind of, I think, play kind of similar games here. So would it be a fair comparison? And is this a trade that you want to potentially make? And I think a lot of this is going to come down to, we're going to look at the numbers here, is do you believe that this is a bad year from Braden Schneider on a bad team and that they could get better? Or do you believe that Braden Schneider kind of is who he is at this point? So looking at Evolving Hockey, when you kind of compare both these players here, and they've played similar amount of minutes. I think Schneider's played maybe about 50 or 60 more minutes, even strength minutes than Ferraro has. But when you look at their goals for per 60, their expected goals allowed per 60, they're kind of similar, but Schneider is definitely at a disadvantage when it comes to expected goals for per 60, Corsi for per 60. Those are numbers where Ferraro definitely has an advantage in those. And it's a pretty significant, Ferraro is actually a positive player when it comes to Corsi for per 60. He actually is, which is a little bit of a surprise. But, Ferraro has definitely been in a much, I think has been a better player this year. And when you look at their advanced hockey stat cards, they also show the same thing, where Ferraro is a 46 percentile WAR player and has really seen his game take off this year, especially when it comes to helping to drive even strength offense. While, again, we talked about with Schneider, right, who's kind of struggled in that area. So we also know Ferraro does play a lot with the big time guys like Celebrini and stuff. And it's not like the Rangers don't have great players in their own, you have Panarin, who's probably going to get traded here at some point. But but also you look at, Ferraro's PK numbers are way worse than Braden Schneider's are as well. And Ferraro does face, tougher competition than Schneider does as well. So I do think this is a big question, is if you're going to trade Mario Ferraro and, assuming you trade Ferraro and then bring in Schneider, or bring in Schneider and then trade Ferraro, assuming that's what's going to happen here, right? Because you don't want to pay Mario Ferraro his projected contract. Are you really upgrading with a guy like Braden Schneider? And I think that's the big question here is, and do you believe that maybe a change of scenery and maybe a team like the Rangers, which I think it's fair to say has struggled to develop players, look at a lot of their first round picks, right? Alexei Lafayette, who is, a top pick in the draft. Kaapo Kakko, who is also another top pick in the draft. Fair to say neither one of those guys lived up to their expectations. And Kakko, after getting traded to Seattle, really started to kind of blossom more. You look at, Keandre Miller, who had a really good start and then kind of didn't, right? They didn't want to pay him. They traded him to Carolina, and he's been great with Carolina. And I know Carolina's structure is very much has a lot to do with it. Gabe Perreault, who struggled to get in there, has struggled to earn playing time. I think it's very fair to question if the Rangers are good at developing their players and their prospects. And not to say the Sharks are perfect at it, right? But it's not like Schneider is going to go back and play in the AHL or anything like that right now. But you maybe think I think the hope for the Sharks and the Sharks organization is if you do trade with Schneider. You get him in here and you're working with our coaches and our development guys a little bit more, and that you can kind of maybe round out his game a little bit more and maybe kind of fix some of those issues that have really been hampering him. And right, you've seen some of the Sharks players and Sharks defensemen, I think, kind of take strides, right? I know Shakir Mukhamadullin, like his big thing, like he's a player who has taken major strides, but he just can't stay healthy, right? You see, I mean, even Sam Dickinson this year, who, yes, he's a very talented player, but, look at the work that he's done in such a short amount of time. And yes, again, his ramp for growth is much higher than Schneider's is right now, but you can kind of point to, to players in the organization and see like how that they have improved here once the Sharks coaching staff, which is very developmentally focused, right, and especially compared to the Rangers, which I think is more winning now type of focused. So you can definitely see, at least kind of see the idea. Let's get a guy who still 24. He does have a lot of hockey left in front of him, and maybe we can potentially fix some of his issues, and maybe just a change of scenery might see this guy kind of take off here. So we're going to talk about what a potential contract would look like from him, because of course, if you trade for him, you're going to want to re-sign him. So we'll discuss that, and we'll discuss what I think a potential trade kind of starts at. And no, I'm not trading Michael Miso for Braden Schneider. So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. All right, before we finish up, do of course want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Sharks ad-free plus members-only Discord access and more. Head over to lockedonsharks.supercast to join the club. All right, let's start with the trade, because I do think that's that's where it starts, right? If you are going to acquire someone like Braden Schneider, who was a former first-round pick, you still have RFA years where you kind of control his contract here, and even if you don't get a contract with, like, you still have a little bit of a runway with him. Former first-round pick, he's 24. He's big. He's right-handed, right? That's all that GM catnip that you like. So, and I actually started, with the K'Andre Miller, I think, which is a fair kind of basis to start with, right? And again, I do think K'Andre Miller is a better player and has been, a better player than Braden Schneider is, but if you start with that kind of as a basis, so this summer, and part of a sign-in trade where the Rangers basically signed him to an 8-year deal at $60 million, and then turned around and flipped him to the Carolina Hurricanes. In that trade, the Rangers received a 2026 second-round pick, and then a conditional first-round pick in either the 26 or the 27 NHL draft, as well as defenseman Scott Morrow. Scott Morrow at the time was kind of that one of those like AHL, NHL, kind of a younger defenseman, kind of AHL, NHL type of players who's played a lot more in the NHL this year and has really gotten an opportunity to play in the NHL this year, with this Rangers organization. So kind of like a guy who's ready to start being an NHL player. So if you kind of start with that, right? And again, K'Andre Miller is a much better player than Braden Schneider. And I think K'Andre Miller's really blossomed now that he's gone to Carolina and is looking like a steal for Carolina. A very smart organization. But I think the trade and, kind of where the Rangers at, right, where they're trying to do this retool. So they probably want stuff that they can acquire that are going to be soon to be NHL players / picks, right? So my assumption is you're probably looking at the Edmonton first, and then a player like Filip Bystedt or Cam Lund one of those type of guys who are ready to play NHL games here really soon. And again, looking at, where the Rangers are at with their prospect pool, right? It's not super great. Again, you have a guy like Gabe Perreault who's kind of in and out of the line, kind of bouncing between and stuff. But I think those type of players where they want someone who they can kind of start plugging holes long term. So I think that's kind of where you start with it. Is probably like the Edmonton pick, and then one like A minus B player, but one of these prospects who are going to be ready to make a jump. So that's where you're starting, I think. And then the contract is the interest, right? If the Sharks do make the trade, what are you eventually paying him? So Schneider is from Evolving Hockey. His expected contract from Evolving Hockey is 5 years, 5 years at $5 million. We'll kind of round up there at 23%, most likely. They also could have him signing a couple, maybe a short-term deal over the next couple seasons, and then when you get to his UFA status, then he maybe potentially locks up for a long-term deal. I'm very much in the I could see the Sharks doing that, but I think you're just kind of kicking the can down the road, and it's probably going to cost you more down the road, especially if you think this is a player that you can rehabilitate. If you look at AFP Analytics, their contract projections, they have the most likely, or they kind of contract projection is a 6-year deal at about $5.7 million, which for whoever signs in projection. So more than Evolving Hockey's contract projection. So I just wanted to throw that out there, especially now that we're seeing the Sherwood numbers are a little bit higher than Evolving Hockey has. So maybe I gotta reach out to Evolving Hockey and see if they're gonna have maybe update the numbers here. But you're going to have to pay kind of what you're expecting to pay Mario Ferraro, but for Braden Schneider, who is 3 years younger and right-handed, which does fill a need for you, but it's probably going to be your a top 4 defenseman for you. So I think it's going to be an interesting decision here. Plus, you have to trade stuff for him, and you're going to get stuff back for guys you trade, whether it's Ferraro or Klingberg or whomever else. But I do think it's an interesting decision here, and I don't know. If I'm going to trade that type of capital, I think I'd rather be a little bit more sure about what I'm getting back. Now, if you can, do Schneider for a second round pick plus, or maybe it's Ferraro plus something or whatever, whatever reason the Rangers wanted to do that, you could maybe talk me into it more. But assuming the trade is going to be a little bit less than the Keandre Miller trade, I think that's a lot for a guy that I have questions about what he does super well. So we'll see. I think I would kind of hold keep my powder dry here on this, unless you can maybe get him out of a bit of a discount while also swapping out one of your players. But I'm a little hesitant, to be honest, on a player like Schneider. So, but we'll see. We'll see what my career does here. It'll be fun to talk about and debate. I'm sure it will be a very lively chat and lively comment section. So, tell me what you would do. Like I said, I'm leaning no, but you could maybe talk me into it depending on the price. So, but that's gonna be it for me today. We'll be back tomorrow. Of course, we'll get you guys ready for the Rangers so we can actually watch Braden Schneider and see how he does. I'm sure there'll be all eyes on Schneider from Sharks fans. So we'll have a preview for the game as well, and of course, we'll have a reaction for the game. So make sure you follow along wherever you get podcasts, and of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and on TikTok. We're almost at 2,000 subscribers on TikTok. I'm very impressed with you guys. So follow me on Twitter and at Blue Sky at my fry hole. Until tomorrow, bye, friends.